Hey guys, what's up? It's Knutson with GolfWRX, and we're back down here in the shop. So today we're going to talk about doing something that's a little more advanced and a little more dangerous because you can destroy club, which is grinding your own wedge without professional tools. So most big-time guys like your Bob Vokeys, your Roger Clevelands, even your guys like Joe Kwok and people like that have kind of big belt sanders or units that are on a grinding wheel that come off. That are big wheels with thicker sanding belts and rubber wheels on them. But they're very expensive, they take up a lot of room, and a lot of times they're just not necessary for your do-it-yourselfers like us. So I'm going to show you kind of 3 different tools you can use to grind your own wedge at home. Now, grinding your wedge is something that seems super easy. Joe Kwok has a great thread in the WRX tech section of the forum where he shows you how to grind a wedge, and he makes it look so simple, and it's not even close. It's extremely difficult to make it look good. The other thing, too, is it's easy to remove metal from a wedge wherever you want to remove it from. The hardest thing is that grind fit for your game? And that's a big thing that if you really know what you need, great. If you're just experimenting like I typically do, well, this is more for you. So, with a wedge, with grinding, there's kind of a couple ways you can do it. I like to pull a head first, so it's head only. It's a little easier to manipulate and work around your shop. But if you can't pull the head, totally understand. You can leave the shaft in and clamp it into your vise. But pull the head there. Just make sure you have a vise and then also a rubber shaft clamp that you can basically set your wedge in and set it in your vise. Now, in terms of tools, there's a couple different things you can use. The first one is a cordless drill, or corded drill. Everybody pretty much has one. You can get these basically disc sanding pads, and it's basically a foam-backed round pad that attaches right to your cordless drill. And then you can get these stick-on pieces of sandpaper in different grits that just stick on, and as you run it, it spins, and you can remove material that way. Now, this takes a long time. It doesn't move a lot of material, so if you're trying to do a big, heavy grind or remove a lot of material from a section of the wedge, it's going to take you a while. It just doesn't, remove that much material at a time. But it does work. I mean, it just takes a little time, but you have a good amount of control. It'll kind of stop you from going too fast and damaging a wedge. So it's a great place to start. I used to use this all the time, still do. The next way up you could do is if you have a grinding or cutoff wheel, you can get basically a flat wheel on here, which is basically little flaps of sandpaper that kind of can conform to the wedge as you move it around and apply pressure. Now this is definitely a little bit more aggressive. It's going to remove way more material way faster, so you have to be careful with it. If you don't, you can really destroy a wedge pretty quick with it, but it definitely makes it a lot faster, faster job with something like this. The other way would be like on my cutoff wheel here. I've got my cutoff wheel for my shafts. It's also got a belt sander as well, which I use to turn down ferrules and prep steel shafts, tips of steel shafts. But you can put a sand paper belt on there as well, and use your wedge on that. So those are kind of 3 inexpensive tools that you can use to grind your own wedge. Like I said, for me, I use kind of a combination of them depending on what I'm going to do. So it really depends. Now, I've got my wedge here that I'm going to grind, and, there's all sorts of grinds you can do. You can, if you need to remove bounce, you can just, grind a good amount of bounce off the sole. If you play in firmer conditions, or you play with a lot of tight lies, or you're a sweeper, you don't really take any divot, you can take some bounce off. If you want, basically just remove some of the trailing edge, or maybe some heel relief because you want to open that face and the club sits a little higher as too much bounce. You can also kill the leading edge. If it's something where you have a lower bounce wedge and, as you go to hit some of those delicate shots right around the green, that front edge starts to dig, you can kind of blunt or kill the leading edge. That'll also maybe straighten out that leading edge as well if you don't want so much camber on there. So there's a million different grinds you can do. Making them look good, that takes a little bit of talent, and again, I don't have a ton of that. I just do it to make it somewhat functional, and for me, it's also just kind of messing around. So let's go ahead and mark off our wedge here. We'll maybe do a little leading edge grind and also maybe take a little bit off the heel just to show you how it's done. So you take your Sharpie, and the best thing to do is kind of mark off where you want to grind this wedge. So you just kind of make a little line there and draw through, and that way you have a little guide as to how far to go and how much material you want to take off this wedge. Once you have that marked off, then you want to basically put your wedge in your vise. And what you want to do there is, if you have a shaft clamp, just a rubber shaft clamp, just kind of pop it onto the hosel, just like so, and then you just stick it in your vise. So easy enough, doesn't damage the hosel, stays in there, and you can still kind of move it a little bit as you need to work around it. But locking it in your vise there is easy. It's out of the way, it's secure, and then you can use either your grinder or your drill to remove that material. So that's the best way to do it there. So let's go ahead and grind a little bit of this off. So that's pretty much all there is to destroying or grinding a wedge, however you want to look at it. If they're carbon steel wedges, remember, whatever you grind, that's going to rust. So as you play it, it's going to rust. It's going to look different than the rest of the finish, whether it's chrome, kind of a PVD. If you have stainless steel wedges, it won't matter. But anything that's carbon steel, when you grind away that finish, grind into the metal, it's going to rust. And also, before you start any of these things, before you use any of these tools, make sure you wear safety gear, wear eye protection, wear some gloves, even a mask for your face. You don't inhale, metal shavings and stuff like that. Just be safe with it. We don't need anybody getting hurt or losing fingers or eyes or anything like that because they're trying to modify a wedge, at home. But it's, like I said, it's something that's easy to take away material. It takes a lot of time and skill to become good at it, to make it look good, and also to get the grind right, to make sure that it's working for your game. So don't get frustrated with it. Take it a little at a time. Start off with some old wedges you may have laying around in a basement or in a garage, or go to the Goodwill, something like that. Buy some wedges and just start practicing your grinds on those. And don't just grab your gamers out of your bag and start grinding them unless you got a lot of confidence or you're willing to replace them possibly. But yeah, that's all there is to it. Go ahead and grind your wedges if you feel comfortable with it, and also showing you that you don't have to have $500,000 machines or anything like that to grind wedges. You can do it with some stuff that you may have at home already, or that's pretty inexpensive. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, anything like that, go ahead and leave them for me, and let me know what else you want to see me do down here. Anything else you have questions on. And until next time, this is Knutson, coming from you down in the shop. We'll see you later.